Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this AI seminar. So I'm going to talk about how AI can improve human cooperation through suggested follow-up action for modeled newscasts, the Human Cooperation Venture. So this work comes from the Technology and Future of Medicine course, LabMP 590, which I've been teaching for 11 years. This has as its theme medicine writ large, the idea of the social responsibility of medicine. And Rudolf Virchow's quote, "The physician is a natural attorney of the poor," and the whole idea of fixing problems of society. And each year, it introduces me to approximately 66 new young people whose creativity is our secret sauce. It's a hybrid course. It's open to all faculties, to undergraduates and graduate students. It's taught both semesters. And I list here my contact information, kim.solez@ualberta.ca. But you can't take it in fall 2022 because we're taking fall 2022 as a holiday and not doing the course during that period. We've got many other exciting things to do in fall 2022, but we'll be back right at it in January 2023, and you can arrange to take the course then or anytime beyond. Yeah. So in the course, we identified the 24 big challenges of humanity that could be addressed with artificial intelligence. And the idea of doing that comes from the great success that artificial intelligence has had solving protein folding, solving the initial steps of nuclear fusion. The time is right to pick other socially important things for AI to assist with to save the human race. Yeah. So Ishita Mogi, who's shown here in this picture, in AI video of mine. We have a lot of such videos. She's also a graphic artist. And these are the depictions she did of the first 12 of the 24 challenges of humanity. When you have graphic artist skills, you can just create what is in your mind, and that's it, right? But we decided today to do the second 12 using DALL-E 2 large language model generated images. And that was entirely different and very informative how that worked. For instance, one of the challenges was unknown unknowns, and this is the picture that DALL-E 2 found for unknown unknowns. But some of the things we tried to search for, it refused. It threatened to throw us off the program. Yeah, we searched for genetic degeneration, and it told us that was not an acceptable term. But when we changed it to genetic engineering, it liked that just fine. So yeah, it's kind of a negotiation, and the images that emerge are frequently quite surprising. So it's not at all like the idea of directly creating art. So we have an existing team of faculty and students from the CFAR grant we did some time ago, The Future of Being Human, and the Future of Life Institute World Build competition. But now we're working on a CIHR Equitable AI for Public Health grant. And for that, we'll need more medical people. So we're planning to add at least 6 additional medical people, physicians or health professionals, to help us with that grant. And that's quite an exciting prospect. Yeah, so we have a very diverse group, as you can see here, and I think that will serve us well when addressing the subject of equitable AI for public health. And this is a picture of some of the students, and we also plan to have funding to support an administrator and graduate student, and these are the lead candidates for that, Emily Kafani and Terence Stokowski. Getting back to the main thrust of this presentation, it is Eliezer Yudkowsky's essay called AGI Ruin and a List of Lethalities. And as you probably know, I have a video about this that you can find in the notes in YouTube for this video. And so Eliezer has the idea that artificial general intelligence, AGI, may make humans a distant memory. And it's important to counter this AGI ruin idea, which is really the worst outcome imaginable. And this video that I've done talking about countering that happens to be my most popular video ever thus far. So you might want to watch it, and the link is in the YouTube notes. Yeah, and so how soon is artificial general intelligence arriving? There are people who enjoy predicting things like this. These 272 forecasters in Metaculus originally thought it would be in the 2050s, and in fact, the late 2050s. But in May of 2022, that date dramatically declined to 2039, which is only 17 years from now, and adds quite a lot of urgency to our response to this. And they base that on the success of large language models in AI. However, AGI could have rapid self-improvement that could also lead to AI-led global cooperation to an extent that humans could never have achieved on their own, an AGI utopia. There's nothing more important than making this a reality and avoiding Yudkowsky's AGI ruin and list of lethalities. So what's the best way to do that, to show that? It's the best milieu in which these AI-generated better than human ideas on cooperation between humans could emerge to save humanity. Well, I thought one way of looking at that is to look at newscasts. And newscasts, quite a foreign thing for many people, as never watched them, never listened to them. Most young people and most celebrities never watch the news. And so starting July 1st, I listened to and recorded CBC Radio 1 in the morning, The World This Hour, usually at 4 a.m., sometimes at 5 or 6. And then I thought that wasn't really sufficient. So I also watched the NBC Nightly News Kids version to try to figure out what kinds of cooperation are needed between human beings to make the world a better place. And you can imagine that these two sources are different. CBC Radio 1 often leaves you hanging. The very first newscast I recorded on July 1st talked about forest fires around Machu Picchu in Peru. I was horrified to hear about that. I've been there. It's one of the most beautiful heritage places in the world. I could not imagine it burning down. It was just a terrible idea. But there was no follow-up. But the story was there was an international effort to put out the forest fires that was successful. Those forest fires never got anywhere close to Machu Picchu, and Machu Picchu is fine. But CBC Radio 1 never told people that. If it bleeds, it bleeds. That wasn't an interesting story. The fact they'd put out the fire, that's boring, Whereas on NBC Nightly News Kids version, they are very mindful about not creating anxiety in the kids that is not resolved. So anytime they talk about anything troubling, they also talk about how it will be resolved. So the kids are never left with the idea of an unresolved problem. So I would think that large language models, like the next big thing after GPT-3 and DALL-E 2 and Lambda and Minerva and so on, could be a large language model interface that allows AI-generated cooperation ideas for humanity to emerge. This would require the invention of something new by AI and large companies that are the only ones that can do this kind of research. So now, what does DALL-E 2 think of this? You may be surprised by this picture that was created in response to the prompt oil painting, improved ways of cooperating for humans emerging from machine learning large language models. What does it show? Well, it's quite interesting, eh? It shows two human faces, but they look kind of metallic, like they're partly machines, and they also have greenish coloration that often in copper surfaces gives a very beautiful green pattern that we call patina. Yeah, so that's what and it sort of suggests that in the future there will be humans that look like this. We'll have to see if that happens. That kind of merger of humans and machines does indeed take place. Here is a picture that I know is fictional. This picture from Shutterstock is not something that will ever happen. You see here an AI in school learning from books and from a human teacher, sort of going through childhood. And that is not going to happen like that. On the other hand, it is an exciting thing to think that this idea of an idea for better human cooperation coming from machine intelligences would mean creating a machine that had a true understanding of the world. Maybe the first machine with such large language model to have such a true understanding of the world. However, that understanding would not be anything like our understanding of the world, but it will likely work better. And the source for that is an essay Rich Sutton wrote in 2019 called The Bitter Lesson, that you will also find in the YouTube description of this video. It's worth reading and rereading, because what it will tell you is it's quite counterintuitive. You would think that to teach AI something, it needs to know how humans would learn it, but that is just a distraction. And really, in almost every instance, AI learns better without the distraction of knowing how humans learn whatever it's trying to learn. It's better to do it directly using general search and learning techniques, and like self-play, playing against itself. And Demis Hassabis, the CEO of DeepMind, talks with great enthusiasm about the moment in the future when an AI will win the Nobel Peace Prize. And I think this might be one such moment if, in fact, an AI suggests a model for human cooperation that is superior to anything that humans had come up with themselves before. And the alternative, if we do nothing to counter Yudkowsky's idea of AGI ruin and the list of lethalities, is that we encourage trolls that thrive on chaos and watching the world burn. We cannot allow that, as eventually this will prevent all other good plans from succeeding. And if we fail at the AI alignment challenge, then we may not get to address the other 23. So this human cooperation venture is priority one. Now, on June 18th, 2022, there was a CNBC article entitled, "Computer Scientists Are Questioning Whether Alphabet's DeepMind Will Ever Make AI More Human-Like," stating that DeepMind's main product continues to be PR, politics, and not technical innovation or products. This was intended to be negative, but I found it quite positive, actually, because I am also engaged partly in public relations and politics, and the world needs both science and positive public relations and politics. If we succeed in getting everyone thinking about AGI utopia rather than AGI ruin, then we will have won most of the battle. So the world needs both introverts and extroverts. Rich Sutton and I have thought that probably most of the time I'm an extrovert and he's an introvert, although sometimes the roles switch in the other direction. Such people can work together, and every time one discusses or promotes the idea of AGI utopia, the chances of it occurring improve and the length of time to wait for it lessen. High impact education is education that changes human behavior, and I hope I've inspired you today to work toward a world created by AGI much better for humans than anything you ever imagined. Yeah, so what does DALL-E 2 think about this? This is a picture that was created in response to the prompt Van Gogh style stained glass window. Physician Kim Solez imagines artificial general intelligence utopia with improved human cooperation, truthfulness, and flourishing. Yeah, so it's a kind of amusing picture, eh? It really seemed like DALL-E got a bit mixed up. This is not a picture of Kim Solez, it's a picture of Vincent van Gogh. But what are all these objects? It is in the style of his painting. He's holding some sort of light bulb or torch. But what are all these other things? We don't really know what they are. And don't you think machines could teach us what those other necessary elements of cooperation are? And yeah, that would be quite informative. So that's what I had to tell you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yeah, and here's my email and my website. Yeah, justmachines.com. Okay, thank you very much. That's it.